Hey everybody, what's happening? I'm Tommy, and you are on the boat. Good to see you, Brock Bandy. How are you, Sandy Wendy? Joy Lee, glad that you are here. There's Kristen Melinda. Ashley G, what's happening? Glad that you are here. Brock Bandy, hope you're doing well. So this one is going to be a kind of an intro. I'm doing a show over on the channel formerly known as Cults and Crims. Just Joan, good to see you. Where I'm going to be talking about Aleister Crowley. Meredith Lynn, how are you? And from Massachusetts, what's happening? I'm going to be talking a lot more about Aleister. By the way, his last name is Crowley. It's one of the most mispronounced names in history. The man's last name is not Crowley. It is Crowley. That is how that is pronounced. Jane, how are you? Good to see you. Jane, how are you? Good to see you. There's a couple of Janes here. This is a dude that, well, for better or worse, Tommy Bird, good to see you. For better or worse, this guy has massively influenced a lot of culture that we are stuck with. It's part of life. And that's just sort of the way it goes. Joy Lee says, looking forward to this topic. Yeah, this is a guy that a lot of people talk about. Mike Bragg, good to see you. Hello, Amy Edge. And I don't know, that's probably not a great thing. Barbara Waite, good to see you. This is a guy that was called by many the most evil person of all time. He has been romanticized something viciously. I'm going to be going into this in a whole lot more depth on Cults and Crims. This is the show that's going to tell you why you need to go over there and watch that show. I will tell you a couple of things. The cult of Scientology was massively influenced by Aleister Crowley. That does not mean that he and L. Ron Hubbard were friends. They were not. In a 1952 interview, L. Ron Hubbard said that he considered Aleister Crowley an excellent friend, one of his homeboy acquaintances. Crowley's writing said something a little different. He said the guy was a con man, that he thought that LRH was a D-bag, that he was just a shyster. Murph, good to see you. How are you? The Arabian Bard is here. So we're going to delve into a lot of that. I'm going to give you a little bit of history today. It's going to be a much longer show over there. I just wanted you to understand the importance of this cat and the reason that we're going to be talking about him. Because when you realize the number of people who have claimed that this guy is very instrumental in their careers, in their beliefs. This is live, John. We are live right now. Good to have you here. LRH was a dirtbag. To be sure he was. And his association with Aleister Crowley was through a man named Jack Parsons. And we're going to be talking about Jack Parsons a lot over on Cults and Crims as well. But this is going to be the show where I explain to people why this guy is worth talking about, because he influences modern culture in a way that if you're not aware of, you might be grooving to stuff that you don't groove to. And as I say, they romanticized this guy. During the counterculture in the 1960s, there were a lot of rock bands, there were a lot of artists, there were a lot of authors that all said that they were kind of into the whole Crowley thing. And one of the reasons being the religion that he started. He wrote over 80 books, and a couple of them were religious doctrines. Hello, Winchester Super X, for that particular religion, if you want to call it that. The entire deal, right, is do what thou wilt. That is the entirety of the law. If you think about this, you can realize why this is such a big thing. He was absolutely English. He was born in 1875 in Royal Leamington Spa in Warwickshire, England. He was raised in strict Plymouth Brethren Christian household. His father was an evangelical preacher who died when he was 11. His mom was incredibly strict, and he grew up studying the Bible until his father died. And then he started going in the opposite direction, man. Long live the cat files. Yeah, there's some good cat stuff. If you haven't seen the short that I did on the day that I adopted Squirrel, it's worth looking at. He was educated in private schools and at Trinity College in Cambridge, 1895 to 1898, where he studied philosophy and literature, but did not get a degree. He developed interests in mountaineering and in chess and poetry. His poetry is the most foul stuff you've ever heard in your life. Talks an awful lot about women using the C word. Talks an awful lot about eating feces, drinking urine. It is literally the most foul stuff. I was looking for an example that I could bring on here to give you some flavor of how disgusting it is without going over the top, and there just isn't one. I mean, this guy's poetry is just the nastiest stuff you've ever read in your life. If you sat down and thought to yourself, I'm going to write something so foul that no one will finish reading it, That's pretty much what you come up with. A lot of his rituals incorporated things like human blood, semen, feces, urine, menstrual blood. Yeah, this was a big thing, and they cooked it into cakes. And this was done very much like the Eucharist would be done in a Catholic church, where they take the the bread and the wine to symbolize the body of Christ. Doing the same kind of thing in masses that he developed. This was a really sick cat. What did people like about him? Well, here's the thing. This is and metaphysical. Don't forget he studied in that as well. He absolutely did. He became a person that very much believed. Why didn't they just use protein powder? Well played, John. He was a person that very much believed in black magic. He believed that he had the ability to bring forth demons into the world. He did an awful lot of rituals in where sex magic became a very big thing for him, and started, his religion was called Thelema. Again, a lot of this ended up in Scientology, and I'm going to talk about this over on the other channel. Ashley G says, why have I never heard of him? Have you ever heard of the song by Ozzy Osbourne, Mr. Crowley? Well, that's about Aleister Crowley. If you look at the symbols on the rock stars from Led Zeppelin, those were all symbols that were taken out of books that, the Thelemites, they took those symbols out of there. One of the biggest devotees in rock and roll was Jimmy Page. He actually bought one of Aleister Crowley's homes, a place called Boleskine, where he did a lot of rituals, and lived there, had about 20 years where he used to vacation there. Said he didn't do any rituals there, but he believed the place to be haunted. But when you see how many people that this guy influenced, again, the whole do whatever you want is a very enticing thing to people that don't like the rigid structures of religions that say, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? This was, you do whatever you want. Unfortunately, when you really study this guy, that comes down to sleeping with whoever you like. Hello, Loving Failure. Good to see you. Yeah, I think this is important. One of the other reasons is this. You can end up buying t-shirts for your kids that are inspired by this guy. You can end up buying things that are very much inspired by Crowley. This is a dangerous concept. And if we don't know what's happening, then we tend to miss it. I am running in 2 separate channels with 2 separate chats. They should be the same chat. This is called Mars. This is a new concept that they're encouraging people to do on YouTube so that people that watch on the phone get the same experience as people that watch on a computer. So it's called Mars, multi-attitude streaming, something like that. Did you mean to have 2? Yeah, I did. Absolutely. I did. I believe this might be Satanism. Mike Bragg, I don't know how it couldn't be. And I will really get into some of this dude's beliefs when I start to do this on Cults and Crims. We'll be talking an awful lot about the beliefs. It was absolutely designed. He called himself the Beast. That would be the 666 beast from the book of Revelation. He was very, very proud of that. I've been to Boleskine. The gatehouse is apparently way creepier. Yeah, well, the reason that Boleskine was purchased by him, it was on the banks of Loch Ness, and it had to be in a certain orientation for him to do the rituals that he wanted to do, which was designed to call on the 12, basically the 12 biggest demons in hell, and to call them out so that he could bind them in himself and then talk to his own guardian angel. Because of it, and between the knowledge of the both, he was going to usher in the Antichrist. Not playing with you, that was his goal. This guy was about as evil as anybody on planet Earth, and that included things like rape. It also included things like really bad stuff happening to kids. And there are people that like to whitewash this. He was a very prolific writer. He wrote over 80 books, including The Winged Beetle, The Diary of a Drug Fiend, and occult texts like Magic in Theory and Practice, and the Book of Thoth. He believed wholeheartedly that in one of his rituals, he brought forth a demon that never left him. Now, he has gone to Egypt and gone inside the Great Pyramids and done rituals in there. This was in the early 1900s, and the stuff that you could get away with back then is very different than the stuff you could get away with now. He was thrown out of Italy. There were a lot of countries that simply would not allow him anymore to come into the country. But people like Somerset Maugham was a person that knew him personally. There were a lot of writers who ended up being very sort of inspired by him. There were writers who happened to be, one of them was the guy that wrote the Sherlock Holmes books, was very much part of it. You know something? Here's the thing. I read a couple of books on Crowley over the years, and then I started to do some brushing up on it. He's not a guy I would say I studied. He scares the crap out of me, to be really honest with you. So his writings are not something that I delve into. I never looked at any of the stuff that, but I have, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was an acolyte, as was Jack Parsons, and we were going to talk a lot about that on the other channel, because that was the go-between between L. Ron Hubbard and Aleister Crowley. And you know what? This isn't open to debate. The Scientology people will freak out, but this is not open to debate. These are stone cold facts. The problem is that when the problem for Scientology is that when LRH went and did these rituals with Jack Parsons and his wife, those things were written down. When people do these occult things, they write them down meticulously, times, dates. So when Jack Parsons blew himself up, his books were recovered, and it happened. L. Ron Hubbard was very, very into the whole black magic thing. And when we go over on Cults and Crims, I'm going to break down the things that he took directly from that into Scientology. It's pretty wild stuff. It looks like the live chats are separate. It must be gremlins. Oh, it could be. The good news is you're all hearing it, right? So I probably is at least a halfway decent thing. I'm still trying to get over the fact that Helter Skelter was not an honest book. Yeah, Crowley's a little bit more disturbing, right? The Crowley stuff to me is foul because of just how influential this scumbag has been. He died in 1947. By the way, all of his traveling all over the world and all of these religious things and buying the houses, his dad owned a brewery. And when his father died, he got a bunch of cash from the family. And this enabled him to travel the world. He abused every drug on planet Earth because he believed that things like ayahuasca, and believe it or not, that was very around in the early 1900s, and he abused the hell out of it. He also did anything else that he could do to bring on changes of consciousness, mushrooms, peyote, but he was super into cocaine. He was very into an awful lot of drugs. I think it's a badge of honor. It's no big deal on the influence with the people around the world. Yeah, you know, here's the thing, though. I don't want to have anything to do with somebody that thinks this cat's cool, right? If you study this dude, he's one of those individuals that you look at and just go, you know what? If this is somebody that you want on your T-shirt, I don't want to know you, right? And I know that very often counterculture stuff does things just to piss off the mainstream, right? And by mainstream, I mean the people that believe in something else, right? The people that believe that evil is actually evil, right? It's just a frightening thing to me. If you look at, and I don't want to bum anyone out, you know, warning, there are going to be rock stars you really dig who are going to be on this list. But in the 1960s, and the psychedelic era kicked on because of the whole do whatever you want. That was really in line with free love. It was really in line with the whole sex magic and rituals and whatnot. So he kind of got adopted by the counterculture, and he ended up probably the first time we saw him in rock and roll was probably on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Now, keep in mind, there is a hell of a lot of people on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But one of them was Aleister Crowley, and putting him on there, that album was so influential to so many other musicians that people that came after the Beatles started to spend a lot of time looking at Crowley in a different way. Led Zeppelin was really, really into them, but especially Jimmy Page, all of those symbols were brought by them. David Bowie referenced Crowley in Quicksand, 1971, immersed in Crowley during the occult phase for transformation themes. And if you remember the whole David Bowie went from the very androgynous kind of, Ziggy Stardust thing and sort of moved on. By the way, Crowley was bisexual very openly at a time when that just kind of wasn't a thing like it is today. But so many other people started to sort of buy into an awful lot of what this dude was into. Jim Morrison of The Doors, a follower of the shamanic lyrics, break on through, drew from the boundary breaking ideas that Crowley came up with in a lot of his books. No, you're good with the voice on the road. It happens to the best of us. The fact that his wife gave him 100 mics of acid when he died so he could trip his way out was just wild. Are you talking about Crowley? Because I've never heard that. It's kind of interesting. 2 chats, but you're getting flow feed both. Hitting flow feed. You know what? I hope that it's working. This is a brand new thing for me. Thank you, Jane Aldrich, and I appreciate the super chat. But I've never found that in anything. In fact, so we're going to go over some urban legends about this cat, because one of the really great ones is that he had an assistant whose name was Pierce, and that he took this woman to Europe to work on sex magic rituals. This woman, Pierce, left Europe in October of 1924. 8 months later in the United States, gave birth to a daughter, and there was an urban legend that daughter was fathered by Aleister Crowley. The daughter happened to be Barbara Pierce, who years later would marry a gentleman that worked for the Central Intelligence Agency, who also became a president of the United States. That would be George Bush, the first one. So Barbara Bush, there's an urban legend out there that Barbara Bush was fathered by Aleister Crowley, and it gets a lot of traction. There's a bunch of people who say it as if it's real. Why, thank you, Reese. Reese can help me apparently. She's good at that. I'm glad that you are here, babe. Good to see you. Hope you had a good show. Barbara Bush. Yeah, there's a lot of people that to this day, and I mean, to be really honest, if you see a picture of Barbara Bush when she's older and you put it right next to Aleister Crowley, they look a lot alike. This stemmed from an April Fool's joke that a guy did on the radio, but people have run with it for years. There is absolutely nothing you can find that says he ever met the Pierce woman. And these things tend to be really well documented because this dude was a freak. Like his writings were extensive. He was doing all of these weird things constantly, and he wrote everything down. Had Barbara Bush been an illegitimate kid of Crowley's, we probably would know a lot more about it. They do look similar, but she also looks like she could be on the $1 bill. So you could say maybe she, there was something there with I'm sorry, that's just terrible. But she does look a little like George Washington. Did he have a fart fetish? Yes, he actually did. Sorry, but it does appear in a lot of his poetry, if you can call it poetry. But there are a lot of urban legends around him. I've never found anything. When he died in 1947, he was living with a friend. He was penniless. He was addicted to heroin. He had blown his entire family's fortune, and he was basically a loser at that point. I can find a lot of stuff written that he was selling oral sex for dope toward the end of his life. I didn't find anything about the acid, but yeah, the fart fetish thing is a little rugged. It's everything that he wrote is so foul that I promise you, like, again, I was going through all kinds of research, just trying to find something where I can say, this will give you a taste. There's no way to do it. What I can tell you is that if there is a disgusting sexual theme, the kind of thing that you go, no way, all right, it's in all of his poetry. And he was in about 6 different, this is going to make all kinds of friends, but he was big into Freemasonry. Now, I will say this. The Freemason groups that he attended were not mainstream, but as you start to go through them, you realize that there were ministers and churches that were inviting this guy in to do the stuff that he did. So there was a whole lot of crossover between a whole lot of really odd stuff. There are a lot of documentaries on it, a lot, but you have to sort of pull through them. There are so many documentaries that will tell you that it is a stone cold fact that Barbara Pierce's mother was a assistant of his. Every assistant that he ever had is written down in his writings. They're pretty easy to research. So maybe she was the one assistant that nobody ever bothered to document. But nevertheless, It just, you can't back it up. And I would have loved to. That would have been a hell of a show, man. It really would have. But you just can't, you just can't back any of it up. Woman of Wonder says, yes, the Freemasonry aspect is so interesting. So his religion that he created followed very much what Freemasonry does with their hierarchy and going through the levels and all of these things. It's going to be a very interesting deep dive. I'm going to be doing it over there. The Rolling Stones, right? The song Sympathy for the Devil. They said while doing a lot of psychedelics at that time in the 60s, this was a inspired piece of work. Ozzy Osbourne in 1980 on the Blizzard of Oz, I believe it was Blizzard of Oz album, did a song called Mr. Crowley, or he re-released it. It was a Black Sabbath song, but he re-released it on the Blizzard of Oz album, I believe. This is a guy that, so all of these different rock bands, and I mean ones you wouldn't think of. Hall & Oates said that they were super into it. Genesis P. Orridge from Throbbing Gristle, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. There are so many different artists out there that said, this is a guy that absolutely influenced me. There was a guy named Kenneth Anger, right? A-N-G-E-R, that who did a film in 1963 called Scorpio Rising. He did another film called Lucifer Rising in 1972. Was super into this. Both Martin Scorsese and George Lucas say that they were greatly inspired by this particular dude. These tentacles tend to go through a huge sort of all throughout the culture that we look at and go, yeah, Hollywood's nasty. The music industry is nasty. The Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, that film was inspired by the Moonchild concepts that he wrote about, which was the ushering in of Satan's kid, right? Which is what they were trying to do with Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. Jack Parsons' wife and L. Ron Hubbard. Parson was setting the whole thing up, but they were the two that were making the beast with two backs, so to speak. 10 toes up, 10 toes down. So it's Dennis Hopper, Jack Nicholson were both people that really got into sort of looking into what this cat was doing. There are so many people that are a part of our lives that we have watched forever that were super into this. The hip hop adoption of "Do What Thou Wilt," interpreted as empowerment. Ab-Soul's album "Do What Thou Wilt" in 2016 gives direct nods to Thelema, the religion that he started. Jay-Z wore "Do What Thou Will" hoodies. He's got pyramid symbols on his Rockaware clothing line. Now, he and his wife have done some very odd things in terms of what their religious beliefs are. You can look up a gazillion pictures of Beyonce that are different, right? She also talks about the fact that when she goes on stage, she is possessed, and that is not her on stage. It's a different entity altogether. The hip hop community, Kanye West, Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar, Wu-Tang Clan, all of these people are using imagery and using, now again, are they doing it just to piss off the public? They might be, right? This is the kind of stuff that does piss off the public. You know, if you're somebody that believes that, yeah, she absolutely said that, Reese. She absolutely said that. And it is bizarre. I can't, you know, and I have it in my notes, but I can't find it. I was just looking down for it. I'm trying to remember the name of the entity that she becomes when Sasha, thank you. Sasha is the other entity that when she gets on stage, she's no longer Beyonce Knowles. She's the demoness Sasha. And Sasha just goes on there and makes that stuff happen. Sounds like a pyramid scheme for depravity wrapped in enlightenment. You know what, Christianese? That is a great freaking comment. Loving Failure says, I believe that's a main verse from the Satanic Bible, "Do What Thou Wilt." Every other, and I'm sorry, I'm going to piss off a lot more people, but there are so many other occult beliefs that take that writing. And if you think about it, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. The people that believe in religions tend to believe that there is a higher power that we kind of answer to. this was the exact opposite. This was people coming along saying, we're not answering to anybody, right? Do exactly what you want. That's the law. If it makes you feel good, do it. If you want to do it, there is no morality. If you read the writings of some of the people that he was married to, one came back to the United States and sort of kept the religion going for him in the US. And some of the stuff she wrote, again, I can't read on here, but I want to be used like a whore for any man or animal. I mean, there's some really rowdy stuff that these people say where they just go, there is no right or wrong. It's just whatever makes you feel good. And the more depraved that you can be, sort of the better off that you are in this mindset. And people are going to write to me and go, yeah, you don't know what this is. Okay, knock yourself out. Tell me how I'm wrong. Send me an email. Because I promise you that when you research this, this is what this cat was into, right? There was absolutely an anti-establishment kind of a vein to this. Trouble with that being, he worked for the British government during World War II. And depending on who you believe, allegedly, they brought him in to do spells to try to keep the Nazis off. However, he was also a double agent, probably because of how easily he traveled in and out of different places and how sort of the elite. He was very popular among the educated and the elite, right? Losing Failure says, or as you like to say, no measuring stick. Yeah, it's moral relativism. So you want to rape a kid, you rape a kid. And in his writings, he says things like, in order for certain rituals to come true, you need the most innocent of the innocent. And the example he used would be a young boy that was without blemish. This kind of stuff is creepy as shit. So if you want to put that on T-shirts and you're cool with listening to that in tunes, I know that people go, it's just a song. It's a song honoring a guy that proclaimed himself the Beast 666 and who did some really foul things to an awful lot of people. His first wife ended up in a mental institution. She went in and out multiple times. Their daughter died at the age of 1. His kids did not have a whole lot of love in the traditional sense of the word. However, when we go over and do this on Cults and Crims, I'm going to show you how a great deal of what this cat did ended up in the cult of Scientology. How so much of the teachings of what they were doing originally at the Golden Dawn and then at the OTO, right? The Orientis Templi Orientis or Ordo Templi Orientis, the ODO, which is still in business, by the way. There are people still doing these rituals today, which is terrifying. Watch the documentary on the USA and CIA doing mind control experiments. Is there a link? Yeah, there is, right? Absolutely. There is a link, and I will be delving into that over there as well. The Central Intelligence Agency and the experiments that they did in Operation Chaos, there is an awful lot that they took directly from some of the experiments that were being done with these acolytes of the OTO, because it was very easy to get these people to do things that normally they would never, ever do, right? It would never happen. It's just one of those things that literally would not go on. But the 60s were really sort of ripe with all of this. The guy that said, tune in and drop out, right? What was his last name? He was a college professor at Harvard, I believe. Someone's going to help me with it. Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary is another person who said he was a devotee of he believed strongly in the writings of Aleister Crowley. And even to this day, when you want to start looking into this stuff, they will continually tell you that, thank you, Timothy Leary, that's correct. They will continue to tell you that, much of what he did was really, halfway decent and kind of fascinating. There isn't. I'm sorry. If you research this, nothing that this guy did was anything but reprehensible. And as his philosophies kind of moved on, right? The whole free love thing, the sex rituals that went on, this kind of stuff fed right into Operation Chaos. This was they set up clinics in places like Haight-Ashbury and across the U.S. where they could trash the minds of people by using really, really. He can't sue you now, says Jane. No, you know what? I'm more worried just about I say allegedly on this because there's absolutely proof that he worked as a double agent. The accusation, but that's a great comment. The accusation that he was actually doing spells to ward off Nazis is, while there are people that say that this is true, and there are a decent number of people that say this is true, we don't have the hard evidence of this. You know, things like documentation that he was getting paid to come in and do this. However, allegedly, he was not the only person that was brought in. They were also bringing in people from all kinds of different religions. You know, it's fairly crazy how accepted this cat was in upper society. In fact, one of the other devotees was somebody that ended up painting a lot of portraits for the royal family. There's so much crossover, right, between what was going on with society, upper society, and how this dude sort of just moved in and out of it. He came to the United States, and because he was in the United States, there are a lot of people that they like to say that he met LRH. There's absolutely no proof to that. And when you read the things that Crowley wrote about LRH, it is fairly obvious that they did not work together, right? However, they were very aware of each other. But through Jack Parsons, who started JPL, right, the Jet Propulsion Labs. Of course, it wasn't called Jet Propulsion Labs while he was alive. They changed the name of it after he blew himself up. They also were cutting contracts and trying to get away from him. He claimed before the end of his life that he was the Antichrist, that he had ushered it in and the spirit had come into him. This was a pretty whacked cat. He was a very, very unusual cat. And the United States government cut ties from him, and he began to work with the Israeli government. Can't make this stuff up, folks. But head over when we do it on the other channel. No, Cults and Crims is actually a very old channel that has been revived. We're working on a new name, but it is a show that I do with my girlfriend, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. And these particular topics, this one in particular, is sort of germane to her because she is a surviving second-generation survivor of Scientology. She was born into the cult. So it's interesting to be able to kind of shit on LRH because he is one of the biggest lowlives that ever lived. And the fact that there are people out there that believe this guy is some kind of holy or whatever is kind of terrifying. Sneaking in late from the Amtrak Lounge in Chicago. You are drunk. Tell the truth. I'm sorry, but if you get on... Tommy, more advertisements watching on the phone, no adverts watching on the live TV. Well, then if you have the ability to get on live TV, do so. Please do so. That would be great. So there are a lot of thelema elements in the Phaeton, right? And we'll go into all of it over there, but I promise you I will paint you taking the train to Albany. If that were every time I was in one of those cars, I drank too much. Just kind of one of those things. I've only been on Amtrak a couple of times, and it's been years. I don't do much of that these days. Tarot card decks, comic books, all kinds of things that are still being manufactured and sold across the world today bear either stuff that he created. His particular brand of tarot cards is still very, very popular, and a lot of people still buy it. The true will in liberty, in sort of the whole being a libertarian kind of a thing. Look, if it feels good to you, go ahead and do it. This is a recurring theme, and Madonna has sort of adopted this. Never any tie to the Crowley thing, but super into the Kabbalah, which is something that he was into, and still that message of do whatever you want to do. Right? It doesn't matter. Do whatever you want to do. There doesn't need to be a yardstick. The only thing that you have to worry about is whether or not it's going to make you feel good. I'll tell you something. It's a terrifying concept from a guy that robbed banks, right? It's a terrifying concept from a guy that has done the things that I've done and went to prison for, because there was a yardstick that I had at the time, and I can't imagine what it would be like if everybody on this planet said, "I'm just going to do what I want," right? But I think the Diddy's of the world, I think that the Hollywood parties and the eyes wide shut kind of stuff that we all seem to believe is happening out there is absolutely happening out there. There are a lot of people that believe that their ascension to stardom. There's a very interesting book that was written by an author that was talking about the band Led Zeppelin. And the name of the book is Hammer of the Gods. And they talk about, in great detail, them selling their soul to say where they were when it happened, all this stuff. They frame it as kind of an urban legend. But if you frame something as an urban legend, you normally don't give all of the details. They were here. This is what happened. They agreed one person would die. And it's interesting because when that book came out, there are a lot of stuff in there that is facts, right, about their partying and their sort of overindulgences. If you look into that band, and I'm not trying to bum anybody out, I was a fairly good-sized Led Zeppelin fan growing up, but Jimmy Page toured with a girl that was not old enough to get a learner's permit. And he would keep her basically in the room. And they interview her about this today. You can find interviews. And she giggles about it. She was like, yeah, I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. I was afraid people would see me. These kind of recurring themes continue to happen through rock and roll. Put a 2 in the chat if you're of a specific age and you remember a woman by the name of Ione Skye, young lady that was super big in 1980s movies, was, I mean, a rash in movies in the 1980s. She had a relationship with a rock star who was considerably older than her. He was the lead singer of, anybody want to take a shot at this? Somebody may know it. But yes, Say Anything was a movie that sort of put her on the map for sure. One of her more well-known movies. Stanley Kubrick, no. 2001 Space Odyssey guy. I always forget Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Eyes Wide Shut. Yeah. Who blew himself up? Jack Parsons blew himself up. He blew himself up and destroyed his life. The lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, dated Ione Skye when she was a juvenile, and he was whacked out on heroin. And she's been very open and honest about this. This happens so often in rock and roll that we don't even care. It's kind of terrifying and sad, but it gets back to that. Yeah, do whatever you want, right? There aren't any laws. Don't trip. Don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about anything. It's frightening. It really is. And this is a teaser. I wanted to come over here and sort of put into people's subconscious a little of what this guy has meant and continues to mean to society. I will make the case over there that there are literally lives still being. Anthony Kiedis definitely liked him young. Yes, Ione Skye was not the only one. The Motor City Madman was also big into this, and he used to brag that no, he always asked the mother's permission first. And wouldn't they rather have their 14-year-old with a rock star that didn't do drugs, or one of those people out there that is just absolutely awful, right? But it's terrifying. It really is. Yeah, Loving Failure says, personally, I think you're living a shallow life if you're just living for yourself. Kevin Hawthorne, Lakeland, Florida, good to see you, my brother. No, you're absolutely right. Here's the problem. If there is not a yardstick by which to live by, then everything goes. And there are people that most assuredly believe this. The number of albums that have this in the name, do what thou wilt, right? that is the the whole of the law. You do whatever you want. If it feels good for you, knock yourself out. This is somewhat terrifying. Now, for another teaser, since we know that this is coming up, and I want people to get over there and watch it. Here are the key initiations and lodges that this cat belonged to. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, 1898. Crowley was initiated at the neophyte grade in 1998. The Golden Dawn was founded by Freemasons like William Wynne Westcott and Samuel Liddell McGregor. Mathers had a structure and rituals modeled after the Masonic degrees, but was not technically a Masonic body itself. Crowley's involvement led to a 1900 schism where he sided with Mathers against Westcott, damaging his Masonic prospects. Scottish Rite in Mexico, 1900, initiated rapidly to the 33rd degree by Don Jesus Medina, a high-ranking figure in the small irregular Scottish Rite body. The Anglo-Saxon Lodge, 343 in 1904, initiated as entered apprentice on October 8th, 1904 in Paris under the Grand Lodge of France. He was passed and raised by December 1904 with his petition supported by Reverend James Lynn Bowley, a former regular Mason. This group eventually was kicked out of Masonry, probably because of Crowley. Crowley remained a member until at least 1908, but resigned amid controversies over the lodge's tolerance of co-Masonry, mixed gender Freemasons, right? This is the guy that was pissed that they were letting women in. I guess that doesn't fall under the do what thou wilt, right? That was an exception to that. Can't let women in. He was pissed about that. John Yarger, 1910, received a 33rd degree from the Surnow Scottish Rite, 95th degree in the Rite of Memphis, and a 90 degree in the Rite of Misram via patent from Yarker, a promoter of irregular fringe masonry. So admittedly, these were a lot of cats that weren't in what you would call your true blue Masonic lodges. Nevertheless, I'm a little freaked out that people that were in true blue Masonic lodges were so easily swayed over to this guy. One of his big thing was that he had figured out the secret of Masonry. If you've ever been to a Freemason funeral, they talk about how these people live immortal lives. They go to the next lodge and they live immortally. Well, he said that he figured out the ritual for how to make that happen. Shocker, it required him putting his junk into both men and women. This was a recurring theme, especially toward the end of his life. But again, died in 1947, penniless, strung out on dope, and by all accounts, turning tricks as a male prostitute to pay for his drug habit. Certainly a guy worth writing songs about and putting on t-shirts. They can actually let women in if they undergo the ritual to become a brother. Ridiculous. It is. All of this to me is ridiculous. I'm sorry, man. But all of these secret societies scare the shit out of me. I'm just keeping it real. They scare me, right? Anything that is deemed secretive, right? Especially, when people go, I got an uncle who's in this stuff, right? Is he a 33rd degree, right? Because if he's not, I mean, it's like meeting somebody who's 3 weeks into Scientology, who just took the course on communication. Jerry Seinfeld said the Scientology course on communication changed his life, really helped him to communicate better, made him a better comic. He didn't go any further, right? Morrison. Yeah, Morrison was absolutely another one that was a big devotee of this. So the Jimmy Page also owned a bookstore called the Equinox that only sold occult books. He bought as many of the occult writings that he could possibly get from Aleister Crowley's collection. Also owned his house. Rock and roll is thick with this guy. I mean, super thick with this guy. And the mantra, the motto, do whatever the hell you want, is kind of the rock and roll mantra, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You don't normally go to a church where they go, hey, we're going to do acid, we're going to bang a lot of people, right? And crank some really loud music with a 808 drum, just pounding it into your chest, right? Yes, here's the thing. I intend to do the show on Cults and Crims. If we don't do it tomorrow night, we'll do it the night after, but I will announce it here on the boat. They should say Mason's great architect of the universe is actually Lucifer, but they don't find that out until the 32nd or 33rd degree. And that's my point. Jerry Seinfeld never got to find out what an OT8 was because he went into one course and bailed. And the average person that goes to a Masonic lodge does not ever find out exactly what's going on until they get to the top echelons of it. I'm not a 33rd degree Mason. I'm not going to lie to you. I've read a crap load of books from people that say some really, really odd stuff about what they find out when they become a 33rd degree Mason. But it's frightening to me that this stuff is out in our face, right? There are Masonic symbols on dollar bills, right? There are so many, there's so much of Freemasonry that shaped the founding of our country. If you look at the number of presidents who are 33rd degree Masons, it should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up a little bit. My experience within secret societies, well, I did a lot of studying on the Royal Order of Jesters. And I'll tell you something, any of these things that say, we're going to separate you from your family so we can do all of this stuff that your family doesn't know about is terrifying. And if you don't find that terrifying, we don't have to be on the same page. But I find it creepy as hell. I really do. The secret society thing. And by the way, every politician in America swears that they do not belong to any such society, which I find fascinating, right? All of these things say you've never taken another oath, right? You've never taken another pledge. By the way, if I got any Christians in here, it says do not take oaths. It says in the Bible, don't take oaths, not on earth. Don't do it. I find that to be interesting as well. Practice enlightenment or something like that. It's all of these concepts seem to again and again say that you're going to get hidden knowledge, right? And when we get over on Cults and Crims, I'm going to show you exactly what Aleister Crowley said about how you're going to get hidden knowledge and how you attain it with what tools and whatnot. And then how that turned into Scientology with the exact same concept and different tools to do the exact same thing. How one, when they talked about the Thelema, this is an entity that is always going to be, right? By their beliefs, you could be 1 billion years old and you're always going to be around. It's one of those things. So do whatever you want. Then you got Thetans, right, that have been around for billions of years. That's a teaser, but you will not believe all of the different things that sort of went from that and bled into LRH, who again Crowley called a carnival barker. Like he was a confidence man. He was a scam artist. So odd. But in 1952, he claimed to be a close friend of his. That should scare the shit out of anybody that's a Scientologist anyway, right? Again, just another lie. This man lied about almost everything. But for him to want to brag about being a friend with this guy, I find a little bit of a bummer, right? Yeah, family is meant to be an anchor for your well-being. I'll tell you what, man, the anchor has become such a cool symbol. I love the symbol of the anchor. I've got them everywhere. It's probably, living in a beach town, they're easy to find, but I love the symbol of the anchor. I think the symbolism behind the anchor, I feel like if by some chance I don't know, it's important that we anchor ourselves to something. But no Scientologist ever knew that. They didn't tell us. Well, here's the thing. If you saw I don't know if Scientology purged the interview, but the interview's live. You can actually watch LRH say, I was close friends with him. It's not something written down, right? It is literally, hey, Rain, good to see you. I don't know if I missed you coming in. Great to see you. Didn't LRH steal that boat from Jack Parsons? Yes, he did, Jane Aldrich. He and a wife stole a boat, a crap load of money, and a wife. The boat technically, what happened is they started a business together. And LRH absconded with a bunch of his money, took his wife with him. And we're really gonna delve into that deep over there. Hopefully this is enough to get you over there. This is literally scratching the surface of the amount of research that I've done on this. But I want to do this story with a Scientologist, an ex-Scientologist, somebody that, well, you know what? It's an invention of LRH, right? A guy that was a very prolific writer of science fiction, right? And he took the black magic crap that he learned through Jack Parsons, a devotee of Aleister Crowley, and spun this into the narrative that became the first Dianetics and then the cult of Scientology. It was a fascinating exercise. The channel we will be, it's either going to be tomorrow night or the night after. It's called Cults, C-U-L-T-S, and Crims. She's a cult survivor. Well, you all know what I am, right? All right, people. I am looking forward to seeing everybody over there. I'm really looking forward to doing this with Reese. Reese brings something really unique to this kind of tomorrow night. The lady of the house has spoken. Tomorrow night you will see us on Cults and Crims. Please go over there and check it out. It would really be an awful lot of fun. I hope you bring questions. The Jack Parson tie-in and the Babylon working and what they were trying to pull off, I think, is absolutely fascinating. Christiane says Pope Francis was a Jesuit. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Or Tommy Bird, for that matter. All right, people, between now and tomorrow night when I see you again, do me a favor. Reach out and try to save somebody. DS, Diane, thank you for the super chat. Jane Aldrich, thank you. And Auntie KK, I really appreciate it. Good God, colored super chats. Boy, is that pissing people off, isn't it? Well, we'll see you on the next one, people. I love you. I'm Tommy.